Thanks, Rhett. Well, Rhett was just outlining some really great and important aspects to having international students and domestic students together in the classroom. Regardless of how great it can be, though, right now we currently have a lot of issues in the classroom that we will just continually glaze over, either due to time or lack of energy or whatever the case may be. Our hope here today is not to alienate anybody, to point any fingers, to create an us versus them mentality, but rather to address the issues that we so frequently glaze over and move on together. One of the first difficulties that international and domestic students have is issues with communications. This includes language barrier and cultural differences. Since attending DU, I have made a lot of international friends, and when I ask them, why don't you speak up more in class or in group interactions, they will tell me that they're concerned, they're embarrassed, they're afraid. They're shy because they have an accent and they're afraid that people won't understand them, or they won't know the right word in English and be able to get their message across. So instead we don't really talk to each other. Cultural differences, another problem. If I throw out an idiom, they may not know what it means. People are laughing, but they don't understand why. All the way down to scholastic requirements. These differences manifest themselves in a lot of different ways. And one of my first interactions at this school with an international student was being shocked when she returned a piece of our paper to our group that was plagiarized. My friends later explained to me that the reason for this is because in their country they did not have a requirement for citations. They didn't have to paraphrase or anything else, and so from a domestic student perspective I was shocked, but there was a reason to it. The second major difficulties that we have are with interactions. The interactions that we have between the international students being afraid to speak up, being shy because of their accent, not knowing the right words to say, doesn't help breach the gap. What ends up happening is international students stay with international students, domestic students stay with domestic students, and the only time we really interact with one another is if we're required to for some sort of assignment. Domestic students and international students frequently experience uneven work distribution, presentations, writing papers, because domestic students have a fear that between having English as a second language, not understanding the cultural difference with the citations, we frequently give over to international students something that we've considered to be simple, like the introduction or the conclusion of a paper or presentation. For group discussions, domestic students will do the large share of talking because international students may be afraid or they can't follow the conversation fast enough as we speak. This creates a lot of negative attitudes. Frustration and resentment is common on both sides of the equation. This is not unique to either international students or domestic students. International students are frustrated because they have ideas, but they can't relay that information in a group discussion. And domestic students are resentful because we feel like we're doing the lion's share of the work when it comes to presentations and papers. But either way, the frustrations and the negative attitudes that happen here are not a result of people not caring. It's not because international students don't want to do their fair share or domestic students don't want to have the international students' help. This just creates a victim of the circumstance that we're in, and that's what we're trying to help correct today.